Good morning everyone, welcome back to my channel. So I've been busy stitching. I've just started at this one end over here and I'm just slowly working my way across the piece, just around each little morsel, stitching it down, and then if it's a little bit puffy I'm just doing some little invisible stitches through the actual piece of textile. I just don't want it to be caught on anything and I want it sort of to become very much part of the background. So there's little stitches within the actual piece I've cut out, plus an overcast stitch around the outer edge. So I'm making progress. It's very slow, but I am getting there. So what I want to do, I have secured this big piece here, but I just want to come down this edge and I want to catch that little bit of lace there. And I've finished all through here and along the bottom right through to the opposite end. So I'm sort of, I don't know, sort of slowly working methodically through so that I can easily keep making sure all these pieces are sitting flat. I don't want to jump all over the place and then find I've got a bunched up space because I've scooted forward and missed a little bit. So that's sort of the theory behind it. Now I'm just going to try and get this squished up in my hand to get a better position. So in today's chat about France or Paris, my recent visit, I wanted to tell you about a couple little things we did. Myself and Marianne and Chelsea, we did a lot of touring outside of our actual textile tour. So the one particular day we'd arranged to meet Susanna at her hotel as she flew in a few days after us, and it was a big adventure for her, so she was a little bit unsure of where everything was, etc. So we agreed that we'd meet her at the hotel where all the ladies were staying, because that gave we three girls a chance to try out the metro system. Now the metro system is fantastic. I'm familiar with other countries' systems, like from Hong Kong and China. Very easy to navigate. It's designed to move a lot of people efficiently around these cities. I can't say the same for Brisbane's rail system. It's very archaic and we could probably do a lot better than what we are. But anyway, we soon became very familiar with the metro of Paris and used it daily. It did add a lot of walking to our day, but it wasn't too bad because most of the entry points to the metro, so they're literally a hole in the ground, were very close to where we were, or if we finished with the ladies for the day, we just checked Google Maps and could see that there was a metro not far. So instead of going all the way back to the hotel with the girls, often we just disappeared down a hole in the ground and popped up over near our hotel. So it was really, really simple. So this particular day where we hadn't started the tour yet and we were meeting Susanna, we navigated the system. We got ourselves one of those cards that you have for the week and you just tap and go. You sort of can use them on their buses, their ferries, as well as their trains. So when we ran out of 10 trips, we just went up to the booth and got another 10 trips added. So it sort of reduced the trip from about €2 and a bit euro, down to €1.50. So really, really cheap way of travelling. So over we went to the hotel. So we found where we had to be every morning to start our day with the girls, and within probably 10-15 minutes Susanna arrived in her cab from the airport. So it's fantastic. So we got her checked in, we went up to her room, checked out her digs. She had a lovely room. And then she freshened up and we went for a walk. So from the hotel where the girls are, the Bastille Monument is just down the road. So we walked down there and Susanna was still feeling quite good, strong, healthy, not too tired. She was weary, but she was doing really well. So from there, we crossed over to the side where the, oh, I've gone blank, Notre Dame is. So along that riverside walk, there were a heap of merchants selling their postcards and trinkets and books and all sorts of things. So we did a little bit of shopping, making our way along the side of the river to where the Notre Dame was. So none of the girls had seen the Notre Dame. I was fortunate enough to see it when I was in Paris last, which was, I think I worked out 15 years ago. And it was standing there in all of its glory. She looks a bit sad now because, as you may remember, she had a fire. A workman left a power tool going, or I think it was a angle grinder or something, through a spark. I can't remember now. And unfortunately, most of the timber work within the cathedral burnt down. So they're in a mad race to rebuild her, restore her back to her former glory. She's looking good. She still has a lot of scaffolding around, but she is coming along. They have the Olympics in Paris in 2025. So the plan, I believe, is to have it ready for that. So that was good to see. It'd be costing them a pretty penny, but they are working hard to get the cathedral back open. So the girls had a bit of a look at that, and then we decided we'd make our way back to Susanna's hotel and tuck her in for a bit of an afternoon nap. And we three girls, we headed off, and we thought, well, we're getting pretty confident with the metro system, so let's see how far we can go. So we pretty much disappeared down a hole in the ground again, and we popped up at the Louvre and the Royal Palace. Now, it was a public holiday, but boy, there were some people around. It was packed. We didn't go into the Louvre. The queues to get in were just huge. There was just so many people. So I said to the girls, we can sort of from here just keep walking straight, and we would eventually, after probably about 5 kilometres, end up at the Arc de Triomphe. So that was the plan, and we probably walked about 1 kilometre, and we were admiring their wildflower gardens. France seems to have changed their ways a bit. Instead of having footpaths and parks full of grass that needs constant mowing, they're planting wildflower meadows, and they're just beautiful. So there's a lot of barley, and then in amongst all of the grass, there's just bulbs planted or daisies, just random flowers popping up. So it was so pretty. And we noticed it pretty much on all the footpaths all around the Eiffel Tower. So I'd say there's a bit of a change in the way of, instead of having the lawns to be mowed, you know, the council task, to, maybe save some labour and fuel and time and let wildflowers go. So it'd be great for the bees. So that was really nice. We got a few nice photos of that style of garden. So I'll pop a few photos at the end of this video so you can sort of see what I mean. I wish our country would look at doing that, because we have a huge an array of wildflowers that grow in this country that are just spectacular, and you just never see them unless you sort of get out of the city. So we were trotting along, and we got to the Concordia. That's this big spire that was cut out of stone in one piece by Egypt, and they gifted one to France and one to America. And the one for France is sort of on your way from the Louvre as you're walking towards the Arc de Triomphe. You come across this big rock needle. Well, it's hard to describe. It pretty much looks like a needle. So we noticed that the sky was getting really ominous looking, and we could hear thunder in the background, and we're like, that's a storm coming. So we decided we'd quickly escape the impending storm because lightning started. It was so quick. We could sort of sense the air changed. Got really chilly. So the front of this storm was coming in from the west, from England or the English Channel. And it got really icy really quickly. So we thought, well, that could mean hail. If that's in Australia, that would mean hail. And there was lightning and thunder, and it just got black. And there were so many people out and about enjoying the day. This beautiful sunny day suddenly got black and ominous. So we quickly got onto Google Maps and found there was a metro entry point pretty much where we were. So we ran to it, dropped down. Once we got underground, we checked our maps, and we then popped back up at the Arc de Triomphe. So yes, it saved us a heap of walking, which was probably a good thing. But we didn't really get to walk the, now how do I say this properly? Champs-Élysées, oh goodness me. You know where I mean. It's where all the rich people hang out with their Ferraris and their Lamborghinis, and all of the designer shops are there. So lots of restaurants, and you can sit around and people watch all day. So I really wanted to, have the girls walk through there, but the storm sort of ruined that stroll, and everything was closed anyway because it was a public holiday. So it sort of worked out in the end. So we popped up out of the ground right at the base of the Arc de Triomphe. So I've got some video footage because you can sort of duck back under the ground to cross that big roundabout where everyone's whizzing around the arch, and come up under the arch. And I took a video of me standing there and just sort of panned to the eternal flame, because Anzac Day was the week before. So there was still some beautiful wreaths laid to pay homage to the veterans that we've lost in the world wars, in Anzac Day included. So the flame was burning, and there was some, lest we forget, flowers there. And then I just panned it up into the roof of the arch. It's incredible, absolutely incredible. So we had a little look there and had a quiet moment, and then we sort of thought, well, it's a bit early to go back to our hotel, so we checked the Google Maps, and the girls really wanted to see Moulin Rouge, and we realised it was sort of just to the east of us. So down we went, back into a hole in the ground using the good old metro system, and out we popped at Moulin Rouge. So I was there 15 years ago, and we actually did a dinner and a show, and it was amazing. It was just, it was so much fun. But I went there in the evening, so I really didn't see the building in good, daylight. So I enjoyed going back and just standing for a moment on the footpath and with thousands of others. You'll see in the video that I did of that whole corner, the amount of people that were around. So then right there near that exit to the metro, there was a chap making the famous crepes of Paris. So I had just had some lunch, so I wasn't really that hungry, but Marianne was, so she had her very first crepe with Nutella and banana. So I've got some great photos I'll put at the end of this video to show you the gentleman cooking them. And then he smears on the Nutella and the banana, and then Marianne tackling it like boots and all into that beautiful crepe. Of course, Chelsea girl, she's a bit of a hamburger girl. She spotted a brand, I don't know what it was called, Five Brothers or Five Buns. I don't know, I'd never heard of them. They're an American hamburger chain, and she'd always wanted to, try one of their burgers. So we took a moment to go across to that restaurant, which was right there nearby. Marianne finished her crepe, and Chelsea ordered herself a burger, and we took a moment just to sort of, rest the weary bones, because we had been walking quite a lot. Once that was all done, back down the The rat hole, we started calling the entry points to the metro rat holes because in our travels and a lot of walking, we were coming across a few rats because often it was late in the evening when we were either getting back from the day with the tour group or a tour, or we were heading out for dinner and just hanging out around the Eiffel Tower and that. So we were often traipsing through alleyways and there was just rats. Not a lot, but we started naming them. There's a Disney movie. It might not even be a Disney movie. It might be a Pixar movie called Ratatouille. And he's a rat that hides in the hat of a chef and pretty much helps this chef who's not very confident in his skills to be an award-winning chef. And it's actually the rat who's the talented fellow. So we had a few ratatouilles around the place and we were jumping in and out of rat holes all week as we sort of made our way around Paris. And often we couldn't really say the name of the train station because we went to so many different train stations. So we'd sort of look at the word and come up with our own version of it, like the English version. So it was a lot of fun. So by the end of it, we sort of know the Paris metro system by the weird words that we created because that's sort of what the word looked like in English. So we absolutely crucified the French language, but that's, you know, what you do when you can't speak French. We were surprised at how many people spoke English. When I was there last, it was quite difficult. Very few spoke English. This time, I think we came across 2 people and they were in like a grocery store, and it was only because we were trying to get a power adapter for one of the girls in the group. Hers had was not working in the PowerPoint in their hotel, so we were trying to find another one for her, and the lady in the grocery store just didn't get what we were sort of asking for. And I think that another one, Chelsea, tried to buy an apple and she didn't understand that she needed to weigh the apple and get a sticky label for the apple, which then had the barcode on it. So there was a bit of confusion about them trying to explain to Chelsea that she needed to go back to the fruit and veg department, pop it on the scales, get a sticker, stick it on the apple and then bring it back to the counter. So yeah, it was a bit of a kerfuffle. But other than that, everyone spoke English. It was really easy, really, really easy. So once we finished at Moulin Rouge, we popped back down into the metro and started making our way back towards the hotel. And our hotel, I think I've already mentioned, was rather close to the Eiffel Tower. So there were many nights where we were walking past the Eiffel Tower and the lights weren't on yet. And now the tower is famous for its sparkly lights. So we finally worked out that, let me just silence my phone. Text messages coming through. We finally worked out that sunset was when the tower would light up, and then every hour the sparkly lights would come on for 15 minutes and then switch off and then come on again 15 minutes later. So once we sort of worked that out, that took us a week to figure that out, we just found that we were missing them every night because sunset, would you believe, was 9 o'clock at night. So here in Australia, it's about 6 at the moment because of winter. In summer, it can be, you know, as late as 6:30, but even 5:30 now, the sun is getting quite low in Australia. So 9 o'clock at night, not only had we had dinner by then, we were buggered. We were wanting to sort of head back to the room and go to bed. So we had to make a special effort to have a late dinner. The sun set around 9 p.m. and then the Eiffel Tower illuminated, as in went yellow or orange. And then at 10 p.m. on the hour, the sparkly lights started. So we did see them the one night. I think it was the second last night we were there. But it was a bit of a feat, as you can imagine. We'd been up every morning. We got up most mornings at 6 a.m. to start making our way towards the girls and their hotel. And then we found a great little cafe across the road from their hotel. So every morning we would have breakfast at this hotel, and we got a bottomless pit of breads and croissants and some coffee and an orange juice for about €9, which was quite good value. So, and then by the end of the week, a few of the girls that were in the tour were meeting us there for breakfast, and we'd just all hang out and chat. And then about 9 a.m. we'd head across to the foyer. By 9:30 we were on our way for the day. So as you can imagine, it was a pretty long day, having walked probably 3.5 just to get through the train system over to the girls, and then have some breakfast and, then go on our day tour. And there was quite a bit of walking in our tour. So by the time we got back to our hotel that evening, it was usually about 7-ish, we'd have something for dinner on the way at a bistro somewhere. By 9 o'clock, we're in bed. We were absolutely jiggered. So, but anyway, we made the effort this one evening and saw the yellow light come on, and then we saw the twinkle lights come on. So I've got a video of that to put at the end as well for you. So that was a bit special. It was another evening that the girls, there was probably about 4 girls in our tour group that hadn't seen the Eiffel Tower. So we worked out how they could get there efficiently. So they ended up doing a bit of a river cruise. Then we found a bus near the Eiffel Tower to get them back on so that they could make their way back to their hotel. But we still didn't see the sparkly night lights that night, because that would have been 10 o'clock at night, and we were all walking zombies. You know, when you're so tired that all you do is giggle? Yeah, that was pretty much us every night. It was a lot of fun. A lot of fun. And there was just so many people around. Gosh, it was busy. Paris is just busy. I know it's a big city. It's no Brisbane. But boy, all the young people are out and about. And they were sitting on the lawn around the tower, just drinking wine and eating crepes and just hanging out. Music playing. There were brides everywhere. Quintessential Paris photo. If you're getting married, you'd want that photo. Just got to take my coat off. Getting a bit warm. So we were always seeing brides. I need to end that thread. It's just getting a little bit short. I'll probably get a couple more stitches. I don't have to be so precious with the cotton, because it's just normal cotton. It's a bit different when you've got embroidery floss. So that was our Eiffel Tower experience and our metro experience. It really was a very efficient and affordable way to get around, as long as you're happy to do a lot of walking in between stations and popping up and popping down. A lot of stairs. We had a pretty safe feeling on the metro. There was 2 times that we felt unsafe. The one time there was a gentleman come onto the train and he was just yelling and waving his arms around, and we were sitting there like scared little chickens. We didn't know what he was saying. So I said to the girls, let's just get off at the next station. So we did. And because the metro comes every 3 minutes, within 3 minutes you're back on. So we thought, no, let's just get out of the way. Who knows what it's about? Because remember, the protests are on in Paris at the moment. So we sort of didn't want to take any risks, of course. And then within a few stations, he was back, saying he'd hopped off and then hopped back on as well at a different station, coincidentally. And we thought, oh no, what do we do? And then I noticed this young girl walked towards him and gave him half a packet of biscuits. And then as he put that in his backpack, a lady who was obviously, an office worker using the metro to commute, she pulled out a yogurt and a spoon and gave that to him. And then we felt, this big. So obviously he was looking for food and donations, and some of the residents obviously could understand what he was saying where we couldn't, and had gifted him some food items. So we felt a bit bad. We're thinking, oh gosh, if only we could have understood what he was saying. So a couple of days go by and we're going home one night. It was quite late because we'd had the final get together with the girls. We went for a bit of a light supper at one of the restaurants nearby and said our goodbyes. So we were on the metro heading home, and it was a little bit late, and there was a gentleman on there who was seated, and he was obviously intoxicated because I saw him finish his last couple mouthfuls of liquor. He had these noise cancelling headphones on, really big bulky earphones, and he'd connected to his phone, and he hadn't realised that it actually hadn't connected. So the music's blaring and he's thinking that no one can hear it, but we could. So he's sitting there bopping away to it, and he's, drunk. And he started getting really loud, and the sign that tells you what station is coming was directly above his head. So every time I glanced at the sign, I got my knot here, I was pretty much looking in his direction. So he started getting a little bit loud, and of course we didn't know what he was saying, and then he started standing and sitting and swaying, and the girls had their back to him. We sort of were a little bit separated. So I gave them the nod to say, we're out of here. So we jumped off, waited for the train to go again, and then hopped back on. So it is pretty easy to get yourself out of strife if you felt a little unsafe. We just hopped off and got back on the next train. It was no big deal. I think half the battle is you don't know what people are saying. So it could be something that's very innocent, but we just relied on our senses that, if our bristles went up on the back of our neck, we just got out of there. Just wasn't worth the risk. So that's the metro system. I can highly recommend it. It was a bit nerve-wracking until we learnt the system, but the people who were in the booths and the automatic machines, really simple. You just click English and away you go. So that was really good. I'm very familiar with Hong Kong's system and China's system due to my business. I'm always in those countries, so their system's amazing. It's just simple, and Paris's was the same. So that was a lot of fun. And probably another highlight for the trip was our visit to a museum, the Cluny Museum. Now, this is a museum that focuses on medieval art, so treasures and tapestries. So throughout this museum, it's not a very big one, so it's definitely something if you're in the area of the museum, you could probably 2 hours is all you'd need and you'd have done it. So there's only 2 levels and you weave through the rooms, and what made it special was part of the museum is an old Roman bathhouse. Apparently when the Romans were there in Paris, and it's right near the Notre Dame, it's in that section that is the original Paris city on the little island. I think I mentioned it yesterday in the video. So it's in that region, and it was a Roman bathhouse, huge Roman bathhouse. Well, most of that bathhouse is gone, but there is preserved a portion of it. Like it's only a very small section, but it certainly gives you the feeling of what it would have been like in these meeting places for all the men of town. These big bathhouses. You can feel the temperature drop when you walk down in there. Now, I believe, if I've got my story right, and I probably haven't, a bishop or a clergyman of the time moved into the area and built his residence, and he knocked down a lot of that bathhouse. And this bathhouse was probably 1/2 kilometre by 1/2 kilometre. It was huge, huge area, very big Roman structure. Well, a lot of it got destroyed in the process of building his private residence, but a section of it still remains, and this museum is built around it. So it's a bit special. I know if you're in the UK, the city of Bath has a Roman bathhouse as well, and that is far superior. I'm sorry, France, but the one in the UK, you really feel like you're seeing it as it was, because there's water still in it, and it's incredible. But this is like a little bit of an original. So anyway, once you sort of have a walk around that area, oh, I must tell you that we've spotted a piece of perspex on this wall. And we're looking through this dark little hole, and it was probably, about that big. And we couldn't really see anything, and there was no plaque. So it was like, well, why is this little piece of perspex attached to this stone wall in this bathhouse? So we turned the light on our phone to see what we could see. And in there was a bone. And we're thinking, well, what the hang? Did someone pass away as they were building this structure? Why was this little bone in there? Anyway, we went up to one of the people that clearly worked for the museum, who was sort of passing through that area, and we sort of, excuse me, have you got a moment? Can you tell us what the little bone's about? Anyway, he said that back in Roman times, as a form of a blessing for the structure when they were building it, often virgins would be gathered from the local village and would be placed within the walls of the structure. And that virgin theory would make the place pure. And we're like, oh, lovely. Just bloomin' lovely. So he said it's not 100% proven, but he said there is references to it. We don't know if that bone is that, or some poor soul got caught in the construction of it, and that's where he remained. We really don't know. So I'm like, all right, no worries. Hence why they didn't have a plaque on it, because they really not sure why that bone was there. So anyway, that's a bit morbid. We headed into the museum section, and it was all about tapestries, room after room of tapestries. And oh my goodness, there was some pieces there that just, as soon as you walked in front of them, and we're talking huge, big wall tapestries. We saw a lot out at Versailles, but these I think were even better. So I've got lots of photos of not only the tapestries, but just some of the pieces that caught my eye as I was looking through all the trinkets. So there's like gold. Look, there'd be a name for it. If you're a bishop or a clergyman holding a staff and they had that curly bit at the top, that was often gold. I saw a couple of those. Some holy books that were all embossed with precious stones, crosses, some pottery. I mentioned the tapestries, but then there were fragments of very early embroidery that came out of Egypt. So obviously gifts for either the Romans or the Parisians at the time. And they were all displayed within this little boutique museum, I'll call it. It's no Louvre. It's like a very small museum, but it was really nice. If you don't have time to traipse through the Louvre, there's other little museums that you can do. And I don't know, I thought it was actually beautiful. Being that it was all about tapestries too, it was sort of right up my Ellie. The stitches, oh my goodness, something to be seen. Now, as you get to the very top level of the museum, the main attraction is a collection of tapestries called Lady and the Unicorn. Now, unicorns have appeared in the history of these tapestries being made, and they are the classic unicorn that we know with the horse's body. And I was reading a little piece of information there that how did they get to the assumption that it was a horse? Well, they now know that there's a fish, a rather large fish. Now, I can't even think of the name of it. Not an orca. I know you guys all know. You're probably yelling at the screen now. It has the big bone horn on the front of it. So it's like a porpoise, but bigger. It's not a whale, but it's of that nature. They're up around the Antarctic. They're often chasing penguins and things like that to eat. I've seen them on the naturalist shows, David Attenborough and all of those shows. So anyway, they think what's happened is they've found the skull of one of these fish. And then because the skull was, you know, in the middle of a land area, they've assumed it's come from a horse. So they believe that's how the theory of the unicorn. Of course, they never, ever, ever, no one's ever seen a unicorn because they've sort of gone down the wrong theory, thinking it was a horse with a horn. It was actually a fish with a horn. So I thought that was amusing. I never knew that. I thought it was just a mythical creature they've created somewhere in history. But no, they believe that this fish head with the big horn was found. They've put 2 and 2 together and got 22. And they then made this tapestry. Now it's 5 tapestries. There is a 6th one there as well, but the 5 senses of love are represented. So, you know, sight, touch, hearing, smell, etc. are stitched into these tapestries, and it's of like a queen with the unicorn in a garden of flowers with exotic animals. So very much at that time, they obviously had monkeys, they had little dogs, little pet dogs. So you can see throughout the tapestry these motifs stitched into it. The tapestries themselves were actually found in a cupboard in a chateau or a castle, and they were rolled up. They'd been in there for thousands of years, and they were very much water damaged and rat damaged. There's old Ratatouille again, popping up and having a munch on a beautiful tapestry. So they've dug them all out and they've restored them. So in the process of restoring them, there was huge chunks missing, like the whole bottom of the tapestry could be seen being chewed off. So they've restitched them, preserved them, but the colours they used in the threads have all faded. So the pigments used in the original tapestry were far more permanent than what they did in the restoration. So when you start looking at the tapestry, you can see a soft shaded tone in all of the colours. Well, that's the replacement tapestry. So once you sort of realise that and you start looking at them again, because you don't notice it at first, and they've got it in quite a dark room. So you're sitting there admiring these tapestries, and then you hear the story that they were actually in a very bad state, had been restored, and all the restoration work has faded out terribly. Then you could really see that there was, it was bad. Whole sections just completely replaced, and you can see that it's this soft muted tone instead of the vibrancy of the actual tapestry. So it's very interesting, and they've decided that they'll never redo the faded out modern work, and I think that was like 1841 that they actually found them, and in 1844 they started restoring them, but those threads just really didn't do the job, basically. So they've decided that they're not going to fix it, because the story of those tapestries and their repair work sort of is part of their history. So as they are, as they are. So they keep them in a very dark room so that those colours don't fade anymore, that were used back in 1841 or 1844. So amazing. And we're talking tapestries that were probably a story high. They were huge, and they had like a seat in the centre, like a big cushioned seat that you could sit on. And see, there's I just pulled up that to show you just how vibrant it was. See the little rabbits. See, they had a little pet dog. That whole bottom section there, see how it's a different colour to up here? That's a restored bit. So that's what I mean by it had faded out. And the more you looked, you'd realise, oh, see, there's a very good example. See the difference? The original and the repaired. So it's a bit of a shame, but yeah. And the other thing they've figured out since too is in the background, there's all these shrubs or twigs with flowers, and they've gone through and catalogued them all, and they're all different flowers. Absolutely incredible. And even the lady, they'd use silks and metals to weave the skirts of the queen, and it actually looked like it had a shimmer and body and movement. And if she had a chain around her waist with medallions hanging off of it, you could see it. It was just so beautiful because they'd used all of these, different threads. Now, in this same museum, I was able to see, I'm just going through my photos now, some of the glass that had come out of the chapel that we had seen earlier that day, because they're restoring it and some of the pieces are in there. See, look at that. You can see the paint on top of the glass. So we got to see that nice and close. There was all sorts of Roman carved structures through the museum. That's the curly piece I was telling you about. I'm sure there's a name for it, but that was pretty cool. Never seen one of those. Then there was Bibles that were all inlaid with metal and precious stones, heaps of crosses. It was absolutely incredible. And then they've found all over Paris walls with paintings on them. So they've been preserved in this place, lots of statues. That's some ironwork from Notre Dame that was saved after the fire. Such a shame when that happened. A gold panel that would have sat on an altar. Just incredible. Some of this stuff. And look at these. These are boxes that the clergy would have carried their, taxes, their loot, their precious documents, and there was just heaps of them. These beautiful ornate boxes with gems on them, pieces of glass. Just gorgeous. So I really, really enjoyed that. That was a huge box that grain was kept in. It was just such an eclectic museum. Look at those panels. Aren't they just... Oh. So let me get... Oh, look. To me, that was just stunning. Look at the yellows. It's white glass that they've painted with yellow paint. And it's a wonder it holds together. It's not even square. It's so handmade. Let me get to some of the tapestries. Oh, they had jewellery, so you could have a look at some really old jewellery. Look at that for a tapestry. Isn't it incredible? And then I'd get real close and zoom in. That was a painting on timber. Just so ornate and beautiful. So there's a few videos where I've panned around the room. So I'll pop them at the end of the video. Today there's more tapestries. There's one with a horse. Where is it? I zoomed in on the horse here. That horse was stunning. And the stitches, might have been this guy. Yeah, this fellow. These two horse heads. Just the stitches. Thousands and thousands of stitches. So ornate. You can see the stitches there. See how it's all bumpy? Incredible. Absolutely incredible. So what else have I got here? Oh, there's some rings that a pope would have worn or a clergyman. Just things that you probably only really see if you went to Rome. So I was pleased I got to see some of these treasures. And then as you get up to the roof, this is the room with the tapestries in. I'll put the video at the end. It's not the best video I've done, but you get a feeling for the sheer enormity of these pieces. And we're all sitting in this centre section just looking at these tapestries. It was sort of our meeting point for all the girls. There she is, the lady and the unicorn. I think this one was Sight. See the mirror? There's a cat, a lion, a rabbit. Lady and the unicorn. 14th century. 6. Yeah, there was 6 tapestries. The coat of arms, the unicorn, for the La Vista family. So they weren't even royalty. They was just a family that commissioned these tapestries. And then to find them in a cupboard. Oh, wow. And then I'm not sure if it was that day or not, but then we tacked on to the end of the day, you know, more walking like you do. Well, while in Paris, you got to see it all. We bought a ticket each. There was the 3 girls, 3 of us, and one of the American ladies, coincidentally, had also bought a ticket as well to the catacombs. So I'm not sure if you're familiar with the catacombs, but it is a burial site that was used when the cemeteries of Paris just became too overflowed, and became a real problem. I think the words were, there were that many deceased bodies piled up in the streets or in areas within suburbs that milk would curdle in a few minutes due to the rancidness of the environment. And it got so bad that apparently a wall collapsed, and the remnants of these bodies and what goes with it gushed into a nobleman's house. He then hopped on his bike and went to Versailles and said to the king at the time, I can't remember which Louis it was because there was a few of them, he said, enough's enough, you've got to fix it. Paris stinks. And Louis's like, well, you know, I live at Versailles, I'm not too concerned. They said, no, you've got to fix it, this is ridiculous. So anyway, Louis inspected it and said, yeah, this is ridiculous. And because they were getting all of the sandstone to build the city of Paris from underground, they had kilometres and kilometres of tunnels. And within the tunnels were little circular areas where they might mine a bit of sandstone out, sort of creating a little cave, so to speak. Anyway, it was all mapped and quite a big system. So they decided that they would move all of the bodies down into the tunnels, into one section, and that became known as the catacombs. And then they pretty much did it over, oh gosh, don't quote me, I think it was about a week, 2 weeks, through the night. Hundreds of horses and carts were used to not only pick up the remains of the people who were piling up around the place, but they also emptied a lot of the cemeteries because they were literally so overcrowded that they were burying people, and then a couple hours later go back, dig them up so that someone else could be buried in the same hole, and then that body that they just dug up, I'm sure I'm grossing you out here, but unfortunately it's what happened. It's good old humans. Well, they had a hell of a problem. So anyway, everyone's remains were removed and put down in the catacombs, but they just threw them in, piles of bodies. Roll forward a period of time and a gentleman come along who said, this is disrespectful. This could be done a lot better. And he petitioned to organise the catacombs to be a little bit more of a memorial. And that's how it came to be that they were restacked. Now you can imagine all that was really left was bones. So this gentleman laid all of the bones in order, and then some skulls, more bones, skulls, more bones. Yeah, I'm sure this is just grossing you all out and you've probably switched off by now. But he displayed them, and then in behind these walls that he created, he put the residual of the bones, and it became then a memorial for the city. I believe this was 100 odd years later. So then, you know, crazy people, they had orchestras down there and parties, and oh, look, humans, what can I say? Sometimes you put them on a pedestal, and then other times you just have to kick the pedestal out from underneath them because they just disappoint you. So we went for a tour. It was solemn. It was quiet. There was nothing scary. Yes, it was visually confronting, but if you went in there with the frame of mind that this is a solemn memorial to those poor people at the time, it was nothing to be concerned about. So we made our way through. Took about 2 hours, the tour. We went down a spiral staircase that was like 130 odd steps. Walked for kilometres underground. Visited the different areas where all of these bones were. And then we seemed to appear at another spiral staircase which brought us back up to the footpath. So it was a good tour. It was an eye-opener, as in for humans and what we do to each other. But sometimes we do good things. But within the tour, what I did see is modern-day humans had written their names on some of the bones or on the forehead of a skull. Skulls had been stolen. It was just, I don't know. There was a gentleman in front of us. He was such a bozo. You weren't meant to take photos, like it was implied. So I don't have any photos in there for obvious reasons. Like, let's give them some respect. But this clown, he was taking selfies everywhere. He was touching things that you shouldn't be touching. He even sat on the top of this well. It had a story attached to it, which I didn't really tune too much into. But it was obviously a well that the workmen at the time were using to sort of get some water while down there. He was climbing all over it, taking pictures. At any time, the stonework could have crumbled and then he'd be in a hell of a situation. Or better still, why the hang are you climbing over it? It was just, I don't know. We got a little angry. So, yeah. People laughing and carrying on in there. It was a solemn, quiet place of reflection. Yet, not only the humans of past didn't do the best of things, well, the humans of today didn't do the best of things. So, yeah, that was our experience of the catacombs. I would recommend it. If anyone was going to Paris and they would like to see that part of our history, yes. But it is confronting. More so the behaviour of humans. I think I got more emotion out of thinking of what people do to each other than the poor souls that were down there. So, yeah, I wasn't sure how I'd feel visiting the place. You just, who knows. But it's very rare that you get to actually go to those types of places in the world, and these very old cities. That's sort of how they dealt with these things. So it was quite interesting. It's not for everyone, but I think Chelsea wasn't really impressed with it all. I don't think she really enjoyed it, but, we were getting very tired too. So we'd had a big day with the tour group, and then we'd headed off on another tour for that evening. So it was interesting. The next morning when we met back up with the group, the American lady that went as well, it was great to hear her impressions of the tour as well, because she was about an hour after us and she had a similar thoughts to us. Humans. Good old humans. They can do some good things, but they can do some horrible things. So, yeah. So meanwhile, I've carried on stitching. And you've got to visit Moulin Rouge, the Arc de Triomphe, the Louvre, a bit of an understanding of the metro system, and then the museum, the Cluny Museum, and the catacombs. So that is pretty much all of the big touristy spots that we saw. So yeah, I'll like I've done the other times, put some videos of interest at the end if you're so inclined. There will not be, like I think I said, there will not be images of the catacombs or anything like that. I do have 2 postcards in amongst my collection, but that's all. The gift shop was very macabre, actually. I thought the gift shop was worse than the actual catacombs, to be honest. You could buy all sorts of weird rubbish there. So just a couple black and white sketches of the catacombs below was all we did. We didn't need skull key rings and skull this and no. It's a place of memorial. It's not a place of skulls. Anyway, on a lighter moment, I'm slowly making my way around this piece. There's definitely a lot to do, but it's all good. It's slow stitch for a reason, isn't it? I suppose I'm just looking at the time. It's coming up to that hour. So I might stop the video and, like I said, add some little touristy videos at the end of some more of our adventures. Oh, goodness me, my needle's come undone again. So yeah, let me know in the comments if some of these places that I've mentioned you've been to, especially the museum. And have you seen the Lady and the Unicorn tapestries? I can't believe it was found in a cupboard. Chewed by rats. I tell you. Once again, humans. All right, guys. I'm going to finish the video there. You guys have a great day. I hope you got some stitching done while I've been prattling on. Let's get my piece back around. We're getting there. Yeah, we're getting there. We're probably halfway. Probably got to come up through this zone next, but that's good. All right, guys, look after yourselves, and I'll see you all in the next video. Bye for now.
On ressort, il va à gauche.